try to build a better world. We were both taken by the idea of leadership at a curiously young age. Frances first became interested in the context of sports, how coaches help players reach their potential, how players made each other better, on and off the court, how the joy and heartbreak of competition seemed to elevate everyone in the game. For Anne, oddly enough, it turned into an obsession with the American Revolution at the delicate age of 9. Side effects included regular appearances as a cross-dressed Minuteman and middle-of-the-night reenactments of Paul Revere's Ride. She once woke up her siblings, wild-eyed and sleepwalking, with shouts of "The British are coming." We were not like the other kids. In both of these arenas, it was the poetic, often breathtaking acts of leadership that captured our early imagination. Michael Jordan's embodiment of excellence in his dazzling drives to the basket, John Adams's willingness to defend enemy soldiers in court on principles that would inspire the best version of a new nation. These were people who seemed to defy the limits of their humanity in pursuit of something bigger than themselves. Their example expanded possibilities for anyone paying attention, even centuries later, even for two wide-eyed and slack-jawed little girls who had no real business dreaming of living outsized lives. We assumed to be a leader meant to be like Mike, which seemed like a highly unlikely prospect. As we both started playing sports ourselves and starting revolutions in our own small ways, we discovered leadership was a lot messier and less beautiful to watch than we had imagined. It wasn't only about the guy flying through the air, but also about, indeed primarily about, what everyone else on the court was doing. As we went on to study organizations and build them, we discovered that the daily work of leading is much quieter and less dramatic than the leadership stories that had captivated us as children. That kind of work happens in the honest conversation with a colleague who's not meeting your expectations, or in the decision to take a chance on someone who's not sure they're ready for the job. It happens in the long walk to your boss's office to tell them that you've looked at the data from every possible angle and their strategy isn't working. The practice of leadership almost always asks you to risk something, but it only sometimes requires a midnight ride or a clutch buzzer-beating jump shot. And there's rarely a crowd that goes wild when you get it right. A new definition of leadership. We've dedicated our lives to making leaders and organizations better. Here's the important intuition-bending leadership principle that this experience has taught us. The real work of leadership isn't particularly concerned with the leader. It isn't so worried about the speechifying person at the front of the room, whether they're loved or feared, how smart they sound, whether their rival is becoming too powerful. Yes, those things can end up mattering around the edges, but they're sideshows to leadership's genuine ringmaster. Again, leadership at its core isn't about you. It's about how effective you are at unleashing other people. Full stop. That's it. That's the secret. The practical definition of leadership we use in our work is that leadership is about empowering other people as a result of your presence and making sure that impact continues into your absence. Your job as a leader is to create the conditions for people around you to become increasingly effective, to help them fully realize their own capacity and power. And not only when you're in the trenches with them, but also when you're not around, and even, this is the cleanest test, after you've permanently moved on from the team. This orientation becomes more important as your leadership mandate grows. When Stacy Brown-Philpott, now the CEO of TaskRabbit, more to come on Brown-Philpott, went from managing a 14-person team to ultimately more than 1,000, she realized she had to rethink her approach to leadership. For context, Brown-Philpott was working at Google at the time, where she was already well known as a strategic, results-oriented leader.